cannot hear him. He talks.
Who?
One eye.
What's he saying?
He says we're in hell.
We're ready for a review.
Come to go first.
Yeah, come to go first.
You froze my laptop.
Yeah.
Oh.
Just get it all in. So, Valhalla Rising. It's a 2009 film directed by Nicolas Winding Refn and starring Mads Mikkelsen. Now, Jem throwing another curveball in here. It's a sort of Viking religious periodical adventure film or something along those lines. Jem, do you care to elaborate on what it was we watched?
Yeah, I think you can't box it into a few words. It was a bit of everything, wasn't it? I picked it because I liked some of the other stuff that he's directed. I like Drive. I like Bronson. I really like Drive. I like Bronson. Not as much as Drive.
I had no idea he'd even directed it. I haven't done any director research on this one.
He directed Drive. Yeah.
Bronson, brilliant film.
Yeah, and so
what went wrong with this one?
I thought this would be good as well, and it was certainly not what. Did anyone watch the trailer? The trailer is weird. No, the trailer's like it doesn't make you think that they're the same. Other than obviously the same scenes, the way they edit the trailer makes you think that it's a completely different film. So I don't know if there were a lot of disappointed people or what it was, but it was this interesting medley between what you thought was going to be this sort of Viking epic at the start, like Braveheart-esque type thing, and then it merges into this almost like art house, very, very dramatic, introspective thing. That's the main thing I describe it as this thing. It doesn't follow a lot of the traditional filmmaking techniques. I think, and part of that was it being so short. I think it was a bit of a relief how short it was in the end, getting towards those last scenes with the pacing. But I don't know. I'd be interested to see. Did anyone think it worked? Think it failed?
I mean, it was Mads Mikkelsen's probably easiest paycheck, wasn't it? Being the mute Viking. The way that it told the story in terms of them. Well, it was all filmed in Scotland, and I think it's originally set in Scotland, isn't it? The earliest scenes.
That's what I assumed, that it was set in the Highlands of Scotland.
Yeah, but then I have no idea where they go in terms. But I mean, I suppose
they go to America.
America, is it?
It's America. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
That's obviously why they're like native Indians.
Oh, of course. Well, I mean, yeah. Okay, to be fair, I didn't know America was so orange when you arrived there by boat. But yeah, it was interesting when you suggested it, Jem. I thought it might follow sort of along the lines of Vikings or that kind of, But that's a very ill-educated guess just to make. It's just an assumption of being like, Vikings, maybe it'd be like a Vikings thing.
It's not part of the assumption that I made.
No, and I mean, it was the way that it told the story. I don't think it was necessarily too clear. There wasn't much dialogue. I don't think, if you would all agree with that. Would you all have rather there was more dialogue to tell the story, or did you get the story enough, Liam?
I didn't like the dialogue, so I would have probably preferred less of it. In fact, that was one of the few things that were quite big flaws for me in the film, was just the actual what the dialogue was doing. It just seemed a little bit on the nose. But I thought the cinematography and the editing and the sound design and pretty much the acting, I thought all of that was pretty on point. It was just, I felt like the visual storytelling was good enough to keep the scenes flowing, like, through each other. And whenever somebody spoke, I was kind of turned off. I was a bit disengaged with it, to be honest. But in general, I was into it. It was a film I enjoyed being inside. I quite liked the atmosphere that was built up. The suspense and the aura I thought was pretty on point. It felt very heavy for a lot of the time, so it required a lot of patience, I suppose, to kind of sit through that. But the ideas that were being explored didn't fully come over. I didn't fully understand what was going on. It seemed like in a lot of the scenes, the actors were trying for something, or the director was trying for something, and it wasn't fully coming over. You know, I was more or less, you know, sticking in the territory which I knew I was enjoying. So I was kind of marveling at the cinematography, enjoying the sound design, and not really picking up all that much more than that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree. I think the cinematography was really good. It was quite inventive. I thought it showed the locations really well. I mean, we all love Scotland anyway, as it is, don't we, for nice scenic surroundings and environments. But it was, at times, it was quite thrilling. You know, it's never a Viking pick unless someone's been deboweled within the first 15 minutes or so. That was probably actually one of the most gruesome debowelings I've ever seen in my life, on screen, that is. And it was fine. It just I just wonder if there was enough of a narrative there to interest and engage people enough, and to engage me even. I was starting to, rather than sort of getting engulfed in it, I was starting to look for different aspects to pick upon and like, in a way. It's a film that made me focus on different things more than almost just like letting myself just enjoy it and get enveloped in it. I don't know, Tom, what did you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of confused by it. I can't tell how much I dislike it. It's either I think it was really close to what it wanted to achieve, or I'm kind of torn as to whether I think it was absolutely dreadful. Yeah, I think the cinematography was nice. They chose nice landscapes, but I thought that there was just no direction with the film. Like I thought that I didn't like the editing at all. It went from being really heavily stylized at the start, to then all of a sudden everything being shot with natural light, and it felt like it was two scenes from two different movies with two directors. Like, I really didn't like the way it was like a harsh cut. I didn't mind the first third and the way it kind of fed into the boat scene. Like, I thought that was all quite cool. I was quite getting into the kind of like arty kind of style, over stylized vibe. But I think like the films that pull off like a certain kind of visual, like Sin City or 300, I'm thinking of, where they're like very heavily stylized, and at the start you're almost got like, wow, this is quite abrasive, I need to get over this before I get into the film. I think they pull it off because they can continue that sort of visual throughout. Yeah. Whereas I don't think this did it. I think it broke it up, and I found that quite jarring to watch. The change between natural light and a very heavily stylized scene. So I thought that was a bit off-putting. But yeah, so that was probably the most annoying thing for me, the way it was filmed. I thought the acting was okay, but the dialogue I thought was pretty off, the same as what everyone else has been thinking. I think it kind of lost a bit of the narrative. I couldn't really, you could kind of work out what the story was because it's quite a simple storyline, but there was kind of no riff around it. And I thought they could have played on the relationship more if it was a longer film between the child and One Eye as well. That could have been another aspect, but yeah, overall I found it a bit disappointing, and it couldn't really make up its mind about the type of film that it wanted to be. A bit like what Jem said.
Yeah, it's that direction, isn't it? And yeah, like you say, knowing what type of film it wanted to be, it sort of tried to hit so many different marks, but didn't quite meet any of them, apart from being at times very, very, very abstract. I thought it made a little bit more sense. It did tie some strings together towards the end, after you'd seen numerous visions did actually come to a head and actually have a conclusion. James, let me know what you think. While we're on style, while we're on the topic of style, what did you think about the style of it?
Yeah, I quite like the style. I actually thought it was fairly stylized throughout. Like, even when in the landscape shots, you had this kind of repeated, really underexposed kind of sky that was always dark and moody throughout for the first scene. And I think if there was a change in style, it was very nicely kind of packaged into each of the different acts of the film, because I think there was 6 acts in the end, and each one kind of had its own little style within that, which I think worked quite well. And it was very clear when he was blending into some premonition of what might happen in the future when he got into that kind of
heavy sepia red kind of cuts and wash onto the film. I think that was fine. It made it quite clear as to what you were being shown. So I didn't really have any issues with the style. I actually thought it worked quite well. My issue is, as with everyone mentioned, is with the dialogue, and I think they probably didn't help themselves in that they had so fewer lines in the thing, and so as Liam said, like the dialogue was very on the nose, and so there was times I felt that they have to make a character. They have to basically tell what a character's motives are in the space of a handful of lines, and they've done that by just basically saying this guy's going to keep talking about I'm a man of God, and that's basically all he's going to rattle on about for the whole film, and so that didn't really add much depth to any of the characters. I didn't really feel that there was many layers behind any of them, and I wasn't particularly concerned if any of them would get killed off at any time. So for me, there was no real stakes there with any of those guys. But I do think the film had a message. I also felt that with the lack of dialogue, you were given a lot of time to sit and ponder as to what that might be. And I guess for me, with religion being quite a big part of it, and there being a person that the rest of the company were following based on what he was having to say or what he was preaching, versus One Eye, who didn't say anything, but in the end, ultimately, people end up following him. It was about, for me, it was all. I kind of took that as, look at how people will follow strength or kind of strength or power through people's actions versus what people have to say. And I don't know. For that, in that respect, it kind of worked for me. And I did feel that it had a relatively clear message, but I can also appreciate that it was so kind of metaphysical and weird at times that you could probably pick something else out as well. But I quite enjoyed being in it, and it's definitely something that has stuck in my head.
Yeah, you can appreciate the fact that that message and that theme was there. It was present, and you could understand it as it was sort of unfurling in front of you. But whether that's something strong enough just to build a foundation of a film upon in the way that they did, I don't know. Possibly raises a question mark. I don't know what any of you, Jem, what do you think?
Just quickly on the dialogue. I read online that obviously the director being Danish and Mads Mikkelsen being Danish, they thought, a lot of people thought that it was going to be not in English, and so I wonder if there was this need by producers or I don't know what the external factors might have been, but for some reason they did produce it in English, and I wonder if then maybe part of the reason the dialogue was poor was because they were perhaps having to produce it in English, and it would have. Do you think it would have done better in foreign language? I'm not sure it would have. I just found it quite interesting.
I'm not sure it's a dynamic that would have really added much to it in the end. But I could see what you mean, but in terms of possibly a Scandinavian dialogue and making it in that kind of film, just purely because of who is in it and the period that it's set and the type of characters that are in it. One thing